stitchy friends and my quilty friends. This is Deborah, Stitching Granny of 17. And I'm coming to you today because I want to give you a whip parade of all the quilts that I'm working on. Not all of them, but some of them, because I've got quite a few going that I'm working on. I think we all like that. And before I do, I wanted to give a few shout outs. I wanted to shout Annie out, the proper stitcher. She just reached 5,000 subscribers on her video. So go check her out if you haven't already. She does cross stitching and she does quilts. And then I wanted you to go check out Christy at Crosshatch Quilts. I love the intro on her floss tubes, her quilty tubes. It just makes me feel like I'm welcome into her home, and I feel like she's a friend. And she does cross stitching, she does quilting, she loves Lori Holt. So if you want to see some more Lori Holt, go check her out, Crosshatch Quilts. And then check out Heather and Jeanette, Crafty Cottage Stitches. They also do cross stitching and they do quilting. They also love Lori Holt. They're not doing as much quilting right now because Jeanette's in the middle of moving, but they're trying to do the best they can. So just keep an eye, and you get to see some lovely gardens that Heather has that she's working on. And they just got through doing a video on how to dye the cross stitch fabric. So go check them out. And then I wanted to mention that Stitching Scotty, she's a friend of mine. She's about to approach 500 subscribers. And I told her that I would make her a project bag to give away. So if you're interested in Lori Holt and you like these cherries back here, run on over to Stitching Scotty, that's Dottie, my friend, and hit subscribe so that she can reach 500 and she can give this bag away. And speaking of subscribing, don't forget to hit subscribe below and hit the notification bell and hit the thumbs up too. It helps get this out so I can get some more subscribers. Once I get 500, I'm gonna make something to give away. And then when I reach 1,000, I will give a couple of things away that I'll make. I can't really go out and buy stuff to give away. I can't give away all the time because, like my name, I have 17 grandchildren, and that's a lot to keep up with. Yes, it is. And today, besides showing you a whip parade, I wanted to see what you wanted as far as from this quilty tube, floss tube. Would you like to see a sew along, like a block of the month with Lori Holt? I've had several people mention they want to see more of Lori Holt. So if you'd like to do a sew along and you have the books, I can't give you the dimensions of the blocks or the sizes of the strips and blocks that you have to cut out. I can give you the finished sizes of what it's supposed to be. But what I can do is maybe do a sew along and tell you A is supposed to go with C, and you're supposed to put it in the top right hand corner, sew diagonally, etc. I can give you advice that way. I know at first, when I first saw the book, I was a little intimidated myself, even though I've been quilting, I self-taught 42 years or 40 years ago. So, you know, it can be a little intimidating, especially when you're trying something new. I wanted to show you what I created. I created some, Lori Holt's got out those floss biddies. Well, the floss biddies don't stick to the board. You have to lay your board this way. And I have my design board sticking up like this when I'm putting my fabric down, because it gives me more cutting space when I'm cutting out my pieces. So what I did, I got these, I don't know if you can see them. All right, what this is a pin. I got it from Hobby Lobby. It's a spool. And then I got some beads from Hobby Lobby. and I used E6000 and glued them on there. And the ones that with just the single letter, I did multiple. This one is the little bird. And then I put a letter on it. So I did like 6 of the single letters, and I only did 1 batch of the double letters. So you may want to try that. And I just put them in on a pin cushion, and I've got it alphabetically that goes around. So you might want to try that out. It makes it a little bit more fun for me, especially if I don't have to lay it flat. And then when it's sitting in front of my machine, it can be sitting up so that I can see the pieces, because I don't have a lot of room. I don't know about y'all, but I don't have a lot of room to where I can just lay my board flat beside me and pick up the pieces one at a time, because I have a desk and it has pull-out surfaces to where I can have one for pressing and the other one for trimming. So I have a little cutting board and my rotary cutter and a ruler on my right side, and I have my iron and my ironing mat on my left side. So where do I put all the pieces that I've cut out? So I like mine to sit up to where it can sit in front of my machine, and then I can reach and pull them one at a time. So, and then next, what I'm doing, Fat Quarter Shop has Swirling Stars quilt. They have a free download. And then I have a gazillion. And how many is a gazillion? It's uncountable amount of scraps. And I like to be frugal and use the scraps that I have. So this is taking longer to put together because it's not strip piecing. What is strip piecing? For you newbies, strip piecing is when you can sew strips of fabric to get a result a lot quicker than sewing piece by piece. And this is what I've got. I've got several of them made. I've got 5, I think 4 or 5 made. So I've got a lot more that I got to make to finish it. And this is a fun sew along. I know there's not one going, but I love to just pick it up and start sewing. What I usually do is put on quilty tube, floss tube, and listen to them and watch them. I've got that on my desk too, so that while I'm sewing, it makes me feel like I've got a friend in the room with me. So I love the way these stars kind of span out to make it look like a ribbon. And that's so that it can reach out in the pattern and touch another star and make it more continuous. So it's very simple. There's no rhyme or reason with the fabric. All I do is try to make sure the same fabric isn't touching. Okay, we all know what's coming quickly, and that's Christmas. And I wanted to show you what I'm working on for Christmas. All right, I mentioned that Happy Little Stitch Shop is doing a sew-along right now with Vintage Christmas. And I showed you the truck that I'm going to put on top of my Vintage Christmas. I'm doing mine different. I rarely ever just follow a pattern for what it is. I do on occasion, but a lot of times I like to change things up. That's just who I am. I want to put my own spin on it. So I'll try to insert a picture here of what the truck looks like to remind you. And then I may not do all of the blocks because it depends on how long it's going to be, because it's going to go up here on this wall right here, and I don't need it going down to the floor. So I'm going to be conservative with which blocks I choose. I probably won't get the quilting blocks. I'll probably just choose the picture blocks. And then I had already started this, but because I was waiting on a kit, and I couldn't wait to start the blocks because I felt like I was getting behind. Everybody was going to get ahead of me, and I wanted to be able to enjoy doing the blocks too. So I said, well, I can always put these on the back. And I will show a video soon of some of the backs of my quilts because I don't like to make them plain. A bed quilt I'll make plain, but my wall quilt, sometimes I like to make them fun. I know I laughed the last time when I showed you my trunk show, how I said if somebody walks up and said, oh, I want to see the back of your quilt, I said, do and you die. I was just joking. It doesn't matter to me. Sometimes I get a little fancy with the back. Sometimes I don't. It depends on how quickly I need to get that quilt up on the wall. And here's the blocks that I've already done. And so these will go on the back of the quilt somewhere. I'll put it on the back because the fabric's not anywhere close. It's similar, but it's not close to what the Lori Holt fabrics are. Now this star one is, I did use some of her fabric in that. And then I had a friend come over yesterday. She called me and she asked me, hey, Deborah, would you mind showing me a little bit about embroidery? Because some of, even Lori Holt stuff, it has embroidery in it. I said, sure. She says, well, I was given some kits and I don't want them to go to waste, so I'd like to learn how to embroider. So she brought this over. She said, I'm really not into Halloween, but maybe I can learn on this one. And I said, well, we can change it up. I said, it's not hard to do. So she said, okay, that'll be great. So when you transfer embroidery, you can either tape the pattern up on the window and then put your fabric on top of it, and you can see the pattern very simply. And then all you do is trace it. I use a friction pen generally, so that way if I press it, it'll go away. I've even used Pigma pens. It didn't matter because you're not going to see it. Your stitches are going to go on top. Just be careful that you don't put any extra lines when using a Pigma pen, but as long as you don't press it, it'll wash out. So either one you want to use is fine. I've even used pencil. So like I mentioned, she said she didn't really like Halloween. So I said, we can make this easy. We can change the jack-o'-lanterns into pumpkins. And then we can change, instead of Happy Halloween, we can say, Happy Fall, y'all. And so all I did was lay my paper on top of the pattern and kind of get the feel of what size the letters were, and then wrote it out. And then when I wrote it out, I folded the towel in half to get my center point. I folded my paper in half to get the center point so that I could lay it up underneath here. And so I just traced it. And she said, that's fine and dandy. Now I need to learn how to embroidery. So I just showed her some simple stitches that she can use, basic stitches. And if you'd like to learn more about that, just comment below and I'll be more than happy to show you all how to do that too. But just a reminder, when you do embroidery, make sure you pull your fabric out from the back away, because if you don't, you're going to stitch through it. And when you stitch through it, you're going to have to frog it. Yeah, you got to frog it. Because if you don't, say this was a towel, it wouldn't be much of a towel because you wouldn't be able to get your hoop out because you stitched it in. So it's just a fun little thing, and it's fun to learn new things. And I've been embroidering since well before I was 10 years old. I know my grandmother, that's the first thing she started me on and then took me into crochet. So I wanted to show you a towel. This one's well loved. This is a towel that I made. of embroidery. And I've done a lot of embroidery. I kind of picked up cross stitch last year because I was doing so much embroidery. I was creating so many whips, and I have a stack of embroidery blocks that I need to turn into quilts. And hopefully one day soon I can do that. And getting back to the Christmas coming, I decided I wanted to make some fun placemats for my grandkids. So when they come, it feels like Christmas. And see, this is going to go in my dining room. And remember the truck that I'm doing that those blocks are going to go on top of has ho-ho in the door. So I decided I wanted to make some placemats. And this will be a pocket right here. Once I sew it, when I sew it, the binding on, then this will be a pocket to stick a napkin or stick some silverware in. So this will be fun. The buttons, they're wiggly eyes and they're sew-on buttons, and I did some hand embroidery in here. And I could have put just plain buttons on here, but I thought these googly eye buttons would be fun for the grandkids. If they don't hold up in the wash, that's fine. I'll just take them off and then I'll put regular buttons on. But it'll be fun for a while. And then my favorite time of year is fall. So I've got to create something for up here. I have something from my living room. I think I showed y'all last week. And so I've got to create something for my dining room. And I have pumpkin placemats. I also have leaf placemats. So I may change that up, but this is going to be the center of my quilt. Now, where I got the idea of this, Celeste Creates. She's another one that I love to watch. She does quilting and cross stitch. She made one of these quilts and she used the barn in the center. So I'm going to do the same thing, but I think I'm going to make a few different blocks. Here's a pumpkin block that I made. And I'm using colors that aren't traditionally that I would use. So I'm trying to expand a little bit and do something a little bit different. And I noticed that I've got quite a bit of this teal going on. And then I just did this one. I haven't embroidered the face yet, but I will. The only reason why I put the buttons on Santa was because it's only one object. Now the buttons for the quilt, I will wait until I quilt it and then I'll add my buttons. But this scarecrow, he is so much fun. I love scarecrows. I love fall. And I've got to do a crow. But I decided I wanted to do an apple too, because in the eastern United States, the apples start coming around fall. Around September, they might be a little green. Toward the end of September, they're ripe. So I made that one. And then moving on, because that's all I've made. I'm hoping to work on that some more, maybe get started some more today. And I also have the red and white sampler going on. It's on the design wall that Lori Holt had going a sew along, and she just finished up on it maybe about a month ago. Well, I've just about got my blocks put together, and when I do, I'll show y'all a picture of that. And then, I don't know if you know about the remix blocks, but there's the remix blocks that she puts out once a month. I turned one already into a wall hanging, and I'll try to insert the picture here. I gifted it to my son's girlfriend, and it's hanging on her wall, so I'll show you a picture of that. And then one of the other ones is this. I think I'm going to turn this one into a pillow. Maybe have it for July to go on my bed. And then this one I'll probably turn into a fall pillow. It kind of gives a fall vibe. There again with the teal color. Now this method I used Lori Holt's method with, where you sew the interfacing on the top of the fabric, you cut an X in the interfacing, you turn it, and then you kind of push the edges out carefully, and then you tap it with an iron, and then you sew it down. I hand sewed these down. And then this one, I think I'll make a little wall hanging and put it up for July. This was fun too. Every once in a while, I like to do it Lori's way. There for the longest time, I would rather do it by machine. And I'll show you one of the techniques that I use, which is a buttonhole foot. But I really love doing a satin stitch on appliques. And if you want to see how that's done, just comment below and I'll be more than happy to show you how to do a perfect satin stitch with your machine. And then I've got this one. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with this one yet. I have a friend that has teacups themes, but I don't really have that going on, so I don't know what I will do with it. I'll probably make this and give it as a gift. Oh, here's the other star block. I was wondering where I left that. So that's the smaller version of the star block. And then the other one that I'm working on, which I started it when it was a sew-along by Lori Holt, the Vintage Housewife. But I kind of got behind. I only have 2 blocks, and the only reason why I got behind, the 2 blocks that I have left, is the sewing machine block and the apron block. And I didn't know what color I wanted to make that. And I'm glad I waited, because I decided to give this to one of my granddaughters. Her name is Kennedy, and her favorite color is a minty green. And I started to trim these out in red, which is my favorite color. So I had to take the trim off. And so now I know that I can't make the apron teal or minty green because of the background or the border fabric that she would like, because it'll match her room. And here's one of them. And here's one that I did the blanket stitch with my machine. And I use what's called a double blanket stitch because I like it to be just a little bit thicker. And that's a hand embroidered picture right there. That's supposed to be like up on the wall. So this was fun. And if you want to learn more about how to place colors, how to choose colors for your block, put those in the comments and I'll be more than happy to show you how I do it. This is a fun little block. All the vintagey things to clean a house. Even a vintage looking vacuum cleaner. I remember having one of those. And then here's a vintage TV. And I had to put Yogi Bear fabric in there to make it fun. Watching Yogi Bear on TV, I remember watching older ones than that, but yeah, I remember that. And then here's the typing block, along with some yarn and a crochet hook. I remember having a typewriter that color and that look. And then here is the baking block with the pie. This is fun. And then we've got the laundry block with the iron. Now with this cording, I forgot to show you that on the other one. This cording is that little rope that you can get on a spool at Hobby Lobby that's red and white. And all I did was take 3 of them and I braided it, and then I hand stitched it down and then tucked it underneath the edges, because I like to make my quilts more dimensional. I want to make them, give them a real feel. And so that's what I did with the cording. So when you touch the quilt, you can actually feel it. And then with the embroidery for the thread, I kind of did the chain stitch because I wanted it to stick out. I wanted it, well, I have a blind friend and her name is Vicky, and I taught her how to sew again. She used to sew, and then we were doing Quilts of Valor, and I said, you know, you can do this. I said, give me a chance and let me teach you. So we set the sewing machine up, and she is a whiz. She throws out those quilts left and right. She's amazing how she can remember where the colors are supposed to go, and she uses little pins, and she gets it. One of these days I'll have to show you one of the quilts that she's done. And then we've got another kitchen block, a cooking block, and a canning jar. And then this is hand embroidery on the canning jar. And then this, I kind of left it hanging, the little tab for the mitten, because there again, it's giving some dimension to my quilt. I like to make the quilts fun so that even the ones that can't see it, they can kind of get the idea of what it looks like. And then here is the outdoor laundry block. I just love these socks. And then this dress, that's not Lori Holt fabric, but I had some vintage fabric that I wanted to use on that. So if you haven't done one of these sew-alongs with Lori Holt, you need to join in. They are fun. And then here's something that I'm working on the side. She's got a tutorial on these blocks on her YouTube channel. And so I made a bunch of these so that I can make picture blocks and put every other one. She was doing some flowers every other one, but I think I'm just gonna use a variety of blocks because I like just making them, just to say, hey, I made this block. Then I can use them. And before I started getting Lori Holt fabric, I was picking up vintage fabric. And so that's what a lot of these are made of. It's just some of the vintage fabric that I picked up or that was given to me. And then I love this block. I know I was able to figure this block out on my own by grafting it. And then I started getting the Lori Holt books. And then I was glad I did, because when I see somebody else do a block and I graft it out, I eventually want to purchase the pattern just to honor the designer. But giving me a piece of graph paper and a pencil, I'll go to town. I can figure out dimensions very quickly. Numbers start going in my head of what sizes the blocks are supposed to be before I even draw it. And sometimes I don't have to draw it. Sometimes I just start doing it because my brain says, okay, it's supposed to be 3.5 inches, and I go with it. And then here's another block. This is fun. And then Christy at Crosshatch Quilts, she did the schoolhouse block, and she made a project bag out of it, and I had to try it because it was just so much fun. And I had some background fabric that kind of looked like sky and clouds, and I thought how neat that would look in the block. So I went ahead and did that. Well, today it's been fun, y'all. I'm so glad you came and joined me. And today I'd like to read from Psalms 16:1. Preserve me, O God, for in thee do I put my trust. And I do. I put my trust in God every single day. I just thank him for giving me a new day, that I can wake up. I can just tell him how much I love him. I can read his word and dwell upon him. And then it gives me time that I can create with the talents that he gave me. And he supplied everything that I have to enjoy the talents that he's given me. So why don't you get out and create today? Find something in your house that you can create and think about God and his goodness and that he gave you that talent. Make sure you thank him for it. And I want to continue to make these videos fun and uplifting and not dwelling on the mess that we live in, because we don't dwell on that because it only makes things worse. So we got to look for the good in everything. Y'all have a blessed day, and thank y'all again for coming. Bye.